All right, looks like we have four of us. Hey, Tony. You can't hear me? Okay. Let's wait a couple more minutes, see if we can get the couple more folks.
I thought I saw Paula and now she's not here. Oh, there she is.
They're waiting on Steve, Ingrid, and Shelley. All right, do we want to get started? Okay. Let's see. Where's my agenda? Yes, Ingrid, I will bring you over. Okay. Planning and Zoning Commission interviews. Who do we have first? Do we have anybody scheduled first, or who am I promoting over?
I think they're right? Go ahead. I was going to say, I think Jim Hardcastle is first on the agenda.
Okay. Jim, I'm going to bring you over. I'm going to promote you to panelist. You'll be rejoining us in a second. There you are. Hello.
There we go. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well, thanks.
Great. Well, I guess I'll just kind of start off and do introductions. I'm Jonathan Godis, Mayor. We are joined, just because we're electronically, I'll just kind of introduce everybody real quick. We have Ingrid Wusa, who used to be on Planning and Zoning for like 4 or 5 years, a while. So she understands it pretty well and probably will have the best questions. Councilor Hershey, Councilor Willman, Councilor Stepp, City Manager Deborah Figueroa, City Attorney Carl Hanlon, and Assistant City Manager Jen Uten, who I believe with Hannah. Which one of you staffs P and Z? I'm not sure. Anyway, that's probably not important.
And Mr. Davis is here too, John.
Oh, okay, great. And Councilor Davis, Steve Davis just joined as well. Oh, and Shelley Kopp, I'm sorry. And we're all here. All right. Well, Jim, welcome. Thank you very much for your interest. This is, one of those boards and commissions that we rely on very heavily in informing our decisions on planning and zoning throughout the community. So thank you very much for putting your name in. I'll just open it up. I'd love to kind of just hear a little bit about your experience, background, and why you're interested in this position, this thankless, tiring, very public position.
Yeah, thankless at times, but once you work as a planner or if you're presenting in a commission, you're an applicant, then you appreciate their presence. I've got about 16 years of planning experience in city, state, and county roles. I've worked in affordable housing work. I've done private engineering and planning work, and I am very familiar with the role of a P&Z commissioner. The reason why I'd like to be involved is to give back to my community, to be a focused and instructed member of the P&Z, and be able to do the kinds of things that are necessary from that perspective, from that seat, that you don't always get from whether you're a planner or whether you're an applicant. You look at that board and you think, wait a minute, what's going on here? Do you really know what I'm asking here? And I do know, I am aware of these things, and I think I would be an effective member in that regard.
Awesome. You're also a sixth grade teacher?
Yes, Two Rivers Community School, social studies and language arts.
Great. Very cool. Exciting time for you guys. I guess I'll just open it up to the rest of council. Go ahead, Councilor Willman.
Hey, Jim, a couple of questions. First of all, how long you lived in Glenwood?
Moved to Glenwood in 2005. I have been away for 6 years, living in South Korea, teaching at an international school. So since 2004, just minus that's 6 years, so about 12 years.
How long have you been back?
We just got back in June, and not planning any other international trip and or move ever.
Okay. I just get to see how familiar with what's going on in the community. That was the reason for my question. So you want to address that? Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that.
Sure. We've always, as we've been away, we've always kept our eye on local politics. We've had a home since 2013. We rented it out while we were gone. And we always knew we'd be coming back. So we have made an effort, my wife and I, to pay attention to news, issues, social media, and be aware of what is happening, what some of the bigger issues are in town.
So one more question, and I'll yield the floor. That is, so what do you see with your understanding are the impending issues of the before the city and the planning over the next couple of years?
Proper land use. There are land use changes. There are a number of significant corridors in town to the south, and obviously to the west in West Glenwood, over here by where I'm working here at Two Rivers, where there are drastic land use changes with previously unused land, which should go through a heavy scrutiny in terms of how it will impact this very constrained community geographically, for the most part. So changes in housing, and looking at the affordability within this community for those that live and work nearby.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Jim.
Hi.
Good to talk to you. Was there any recent event that actually inspired you to kind of move in on this decision right now and apply for this? Was it just a notice that you received? I'm just kind of wondering your thought process in applying right now.
No, no particular issue. I'm not fired up about any particular thing and thinking that I can make a difference. I have always been interested ever since I started work in planning about sitting on a commission like this. I think timing, just personally, has been the impetus for it. The fact that we're back, I've been thinking about it more than a year and a half ago before we moved back, and I've just been wanting to give back to the community. This is my way of doing it.
So P&Z is a central component of the comp plan that we are redoing. And what's your take on what we should be considering when we do this revision of our comp plan? Or are you aware of this?
Oh, I am. I've been a staff planner on the revision of 3 other comprehensive plans. Obviously taking into account every single aspect of what it is that has been worked on in the past, not negating any of that, and making sure that you're inviting all participants, all actors within the community into it. I would advocate for the idea that not one item over another is important in a comprehensive plan. I think they all need to be consecutively looked at and made to be an interconnected part of what it is that you do within a master plan or a comprehensive plan. Taking your time, looking at and getting the input from everybody involved, whether it be public or private, and taking all of those expectations seriously, I think is more important than any other thing that you could do with that plan.
And last question, what's your vision of growth for Glenwood? That's kind of broad, but just when you think about it.
Boy, now I feel like I'm making the first political comment. You know what? In terms of growth of Glenwood Springs, we're constrained. We have such a geographical limitation, but we also have we're a thoroughfare from Aspen to Grand Junction, and we need to take into account all of the different players, whether they be city, county, state. You've got a state highway going through town. When in terms of what it is that we are faced with in town, we have probably a bigger responsibility to look at the long term, to make sure that whatever we do now is appropriate and is manageable for future generations. So, as we look at growth here in town, I think we have to be very practical, and we have to be very contemplative about what it is that we change, renew, replace, and be constant in that communication with all of the different departments, agencies, and entities that are interested.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
All right, Ingrid, then Tony, then Shelley, and unfortunately, we don't have that much time, so sorry, guys.
I'm going to limit mine then more to just a little gratitude. We so often on this, when my background on planning and zoning, we end up with architects and builders and realtors. We get that demographic. That's because they're fascinated with the land use component. We don't get nearly enough teachers. So I really appreciate your willingness to fill out an application. And I'm sorry, my understanding is that you filled out one, but there might have been a hiccup in us seeing your very first iteration of an application. So thank you for reapplying. We
it might
really
have been user
that.
error. It might have been
okay.
User
Well,
error.
we're glad you're here now in front of us. I actually went to high school with both your brother-in-law and your wife. So we're grateful that some locals. Thank you for that. But I think also just having lived abroad, I think you bring a wealth of knowledge. I think the biggest challenge for you is that many times people do get on planning and zoning, and their knowledge of land use and how the process goes through is unfortunately, it's a learning curve. So you probably will walk in knowing more about that process than a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you'll have the patience for that, because you'll be educating a lot of people.
Good. I would anticipate the same. Listening is a big component of any commission member, but also having the idea of what comes next, what should be done, and with a little bit of nudge and push, not so different from being a teacher, is a really exciting aspect of what it is that I can bring to and help make these commission meetings more effective.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Tony and Shelley.
I'll withdraw. I think I appreciate you applying, Jim. I think I had my questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Shelley.
Hi, Jim. Again, I'll echo Ingrid's comments. I really appreciate your reading through your application. You've got great experience. I think you could bring a lot to the commission. I do have just a couple fairly quick questions, and you might have touched on some of the growth questions earlier, but so first of all, what do you see just as maybe some of the major challenges for Glenwood right now, as far as trying to, balance growth and meet needs? And then what are some of the biggest opportunities? Just a couple, not,
Oh, I'll keep it vague.
Okay.
In terms of challenges, I think the interests of other people are always the biggest challenge, because never not in 16 years of planning have I ever felt like we came to a conclusion where everybody's needs were met. And so I think with the understanding that there is thoughtfulness, there is concern from the public aspect, from the planning and zoning department, from the commission, from the city council, to let actors and players in the community know that their interests are of value. Mm-hmm. However, you may not exactly get what you need fully this time, I think has to be portrayed in a compassionate way, because far too many people I've seen walk away from the table going, this was an absolute waste of my time because nobody listened to me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the biggest key components of what it is that we can bring to this entire process: humanity and respect, letting somebody know that although we have decided to deny your proposal tonight in city council, we really appreciate you being here, and letting them walk away feeling like they are still of value, and they're welcome to try again, maybe modify the application or consider a complete change. I think that's one of the biggest challenges from the P&Z aspect.
Okay.
And I think that kind of couples well with, and maybe not exactly what you were asking about, but what kind of opportunity do I see within this either position for me or planning and zoning or for the city as we move forward, is to change that perception that the public has of employees that work for the government, what we do for them, even though they might be bringing an application forth. They're not just automatically given the opportunity to walk out with a permit and do exactly what they want. They may not like it, but they have to at least be treated with respect. And I think over time, this doesn't happen overnight, but over time, we have the ability to make things better and heal divisions between the public and the government side, or we can make it better or worse. It's totally up to us at this point. And I think that's my biggest opportunity, is to make people think and feel like they are of value, regardless of which decision is fielded in a meeting.
Okay. Jonathan, do I have time for one more quick one? Are we out of time?
I think we're probably out of time, but we started a little bit late. So if you have a brief question, and Jim, if you can make a brief answer, then we'll answer one more.
Just, do you have any perspective on the link between housing, trying to house workforce, and our traffic, growth of traffic?
Do I have yeah, you bet I do. I think it's incumbent on communities to find a point of solution that at least gets people talking, whether that be just a transportation planner that is geared toward grant funding, talking to players, understanding that there are community issues that need to be fielded and talked about. I think in the big point, or in the big picture, I've seen in other communities where things are just never discussed and they never are even coming close to a solution. I think, there's a big connection, and there's something that we can do to make that better, for sure. It's very, very vague, but we have an opportunity to do it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. We really appreciate it. So sorry we have to kind of speed you along here. We really appreciate it, and thank you for applying for this position. I believe we're voting on it tonight or the next meeting? Tonight. Okay. Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. We'll now bring over Mitchell Weimer, who's going to have to correct me on how I slaughtered his last name. I'm sorry, Mitchell.
There we go. So Jonathan, you're actually correct. It's Weimer. So good job.
Weimer, okay. Wow, that's a shot in the dark. Hey, thank you for coming very much. I'll just introduce us really quick. Jonathan Godis, Mayor. We have with us Councilor Paula Stepp, Steve Davis, Tony Hershey, Shirley Kopp, Charlie Willman. I think that's all from council. And then City Manager Deborah Figueroa, Carl Hamlin, City Attorney, Assistant City Managers Jen Newton, and COO Steve Boyd. That's who's kind of on this call right now. I just want to lead off real quick with a note of thanks for applying for this position. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of code to understand, but thank you for putting yourself out there and applying for it. It's one of our key boards and commissions that we really, really rely on and we have to have. So thanks for that. I will open it up for council questions. If we could we just keep it to like one question from each councilor?
I'd like to just make a quick complaint. I felt pretty good going into this tonight, but then following Jim here, I don't know that I'm going to kind of end up looking like a dud. So whoever was responsible for the order of these things, I'd like to.
Mitchell, half this council looks like a Doug after that. You're in good company.
Well, good. That's thing.
Go ahead.
Mitchell, you have a bunch of books behind you and a map on the wall. I'm impressed. You're good to go. Can you just define what you mean by smart growth? When you say that, what are you saying?
So, I think, having lived, I also lived in Korea. I was in the military, so it wasn't really being part of a town. And then I've lived, in a bunch of different cities and states across the country, and started to really understand the difference between, making smart, thoughtful, holistic decisions about growth, and then not, making smart, thoughtful, holistic decisions. And smart growth really, to me, is about, thinking through a holistic approach, not only to planning and zoning, but also to, some of the everyday decisions that we make in kind of developing code and thinking through infrastructure and other details that we really we kind of envision a city core and we focus a lot of our energy on it, but then we also have these pockets of sort of walkable, denser centers throughout the area that afford people access to all of the great things that come from living in an urban, I'll call Glenwood an urban environment, but at the same time alleviate the overall, sort of infrastructural needs of an area. And so really smart growth to me comes from sort of a thoughtful, forward-looking approach to planning that recognizes we're going to grow. Right? People are going to continue to want to move to this area, to the valley. They're going to want to live here, work here, recreate here. We can choose to embrace that growth and take on the responsibility of working with that and understanding what it's going to take to really grow in a smart and thoughtful way. And a lot of that has to do with thinking through walkability and bike friendliness and transit orientation and just pockets of smart urban higher densities, but thoughtful across the entire broad sort of region and area. So that's my sort of non-professional, because I'm not a planner, I'm a citizen, I'm a strategy consultant. That is my own personal sort of thoughts and definitions with respect.
Okay, thank you. I have more if nobody else wants to ask questions.
Sorry, Shelley's next. I was muted.
Paula, if you have another one, you could go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to ask the same two that I asked the previous candidate. So.
I was just going to ask of how Mitchell sees his input for the comp plan that's being worked on right now.
Yeah. I moved to Glenwood in February. Right? I'm a Colorado native, I was born and raised out past Denver, out on the plains, went to school in Boulder, and then left for a long time. My partner and I moved back to Glenwood just in February. But we have family in the area. We've been back once or twice a year, I think every year, for forever. And to see Glenwood grow and mature, in a lot of really great ways, and still have just an amazing amount of potential, in front of us. I think the comp plan is an amazing tool to really communicate, to gather perspectives, rationalize, those opinions and those inputs, and then communicate that vision. I looked at the 2010 plan or whatever a couple nights ago. And it's just such a great way for people to understand what that vision is. And it's such an important communication, marketing tool in my mind. And so I had not really signed up for this planning on being a part or not a part of the comprehensive plan. I didn't know what the timing of that work is. If I'm lucky enough to be involved in that, I think it would be really exciting to be able to bring that input that I've seen from other places that I've lived, good decisions, bad decisions, and good thoughtfulness and short-sightedness, and bring that to bear as best as I can to
Thanks.
So we don't have 3 minutes. We were supposed to be done at 5:05. We have 2 more things. And I'm sorry, Mitchell, because we do
I understand.
to both you and this process when we cut you so short. So I'm gonna let Shelley and Charlie ask their questions, but if you guys can keep your questions and the answers
super brief.
Yeah, that's fine. And listen, your resume speaks for itself. So I don't have any, but I'd love to hear from a question from each, Shelley and Charlie.
Okay, so I'll just ask you, Mitchell, and again, thank you for applying, but what do you see as just maybe one of each, our biggest challenges to Glenwood right now as far as moving into the future, and then also the biggest opportunity?
Highway 82 and the river.
Okay, thank you.
You're doing great at this. Go ahead, Charlie.
Lightning round.
Mitchell, I'd like looking at your application. You're involved in a project at Silt. Are you a part of a development group there?
No,
I'm not trying to pry too much.
Not at all. It's me and my partner literally trying to buy some land and do a couple of things on it. So it's really, I'm not a developer. It's a 2-person LLC. No, I'd love to talk more about that, Charlie. I'd love to talk, Charlie.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to get a background.
Yeah, no, it's good.
I was just trying to get a background on what that was. That's what it looked like to me, but I wanted to make sure. So, okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? We got through this incredibly quick. Go ahead, Shelley. Do you want to do that last one?
Yeah, the last one, Mitchell, again, too, is what, so you mentioned Highway 82. What do you see as our kind of pressure to try to house workers and find especially affordable housing solutions to our rate of traffic growth and congestion?
Yeah, well, I think it speaks a little bit back to the holistic approach that I talked to at the start, right? You can't just put people don't live in a vacuum, right? They have to move. So I think a holistic thought there, and then alternative transportation sources. And again, we could talk forever on that, but I think that's the short answers.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mitchell, thank you very much again.
You're welcome.
Tell you how much we really appreciate your ability to, your willingness to come and serve on this commission. We'll be taking a vote this evening for these positions. Again, thank you very much.
I think we're voting on these next meeting, not tonight. I don't think it's on tonight's agenda.
Good, thank you for that. So you'll have to dispense, I guess, a little bit longer than that. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, thank you very much. We need to roll on to our next one. We have landfill fees and equipment presentation. Liz, I'm promoting you over. And Matthew Langhorst.
Okay.
Hi, Liz.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Matt, did you want to say something first? Hi.
Sorry, just trying to get the computer to fire up here. Yes, I guess I would like to say something. This process is, we've gone through it a couple times, adding fees, changing fees to the landfill. I asked Liz to take a kind of holistic look at all of our fees and where we're at, what the profits are, and some of the expenses that are coming up in the future here. New equipment, new scale house, new scale, all these fun things that Liz is going to go through here in a minute, and kind of say, hey, what is a reasonable amount to increase fees? Not across the board. She's kind of gone line by line to see which ones we do need to adjust. And this presentation she's going to put in front of you is kind of a culmination of all of those things: fees, equipment coming up, and those kinds of things within the landfill. So it really will be the Liz show, and I will be quiet. If you have questions for me, I will answer them, but I'm sure Liz can answer most of them. So that's it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Matt. I will run through this pretty quick for you guys since I know you're on a tight schedule. So I just want to let you know, if it seems like I'm glossing over, there is a lot in here. I will gloss over some stuff that could be talked about a lot. So feel free to do whatever you want at the end, ask questions, or reach out to me at another time with questions if you want to do that. So with that, I will share my screen here. Yeah, go. All right. So, are you all seeing my slides?
I am.
Yes? Okay. I think everyone is. Perfect. Perfect. All right. So to start off with, thank you for giving me a little time tonight. So we'll go through some summaries of, I did compile all of our numbers from 2020 into a summary for you guys, just so you can get a picture of where we're at right now with trash levels in our community. So in 2020, we took in a total of 53,969 tons. Our total trash level has been fairly steady over the past 10 or so years, as you all already probably know. So I also calculated our diversion rate, or recycling rate, as some places call it. And this is something that we submit to the state to participate in the statewide recycling report. And our recycling rate out of all the materials we take was 29% of the total. So just to break down a little further here, so 36% of our landfill waste was construction. That C&D is construction and demolition. The other 62% was MSW, which is municipal solid waste. So that's the regular household garbage that gets picked up from your house. And then 2% contaminated soil. So that would be like petroleum contaminated soil. So of the materials that we recycled in 2020, as you can see here, the largest components were compost and concrete, which is to be expected. And then things like tires, e-waste, metal, glass, and commingle made up a small percentage of it, but hopefully a growing percentage. Just a note on the overview of the recycling center. The recycling center has been in town again now for a whole year. And from my point of view, it seems to be going very well. It's very well used. The official total isn't in yet for 2021, but it's looking like it's going to be at least 100 tons higher than the total for 2020. So I think having the recycle center in town has increased recycling, which is really great. A note on liquid wastes. We just recently finished a very large construction project at the landfill to build 2.2 million gallons worth of more space for our septic waste, and 0.6 million gallons. Oh, sorry, 0.6 million gallons is for the septic, and 2.2 million gallons of treatment space for car wash waste. So this was only just recently completed and will be put to use very soon. So a couple other notes here. We turn septic waste and grease waste into compost at the landfill currently. Car wash waste, however, cannot be turned into compost because of the contaminants in it. So that's why it needs to be managed separately and why it's such a big deal. We are, in fact, the only place on the western slope that can take grease liquid wastes and car wash wastes. So it's pretty important part of the infrastructure. So just some upcoming expenses that are good for you all to be aware of, because you will be hearing about them in our budgets and in upcoming meetings. So we are currently in the expansion review process. That will cost money. And I really hope it will be done by 2023, but these things can take several years to complete. So this spring, we are planning on buying a trommel screen, which is a giant soil screener. This will help us with our compost program because we won't have to rent a screen, and it will help us expand our soils recycling program, which will divert more material from the landfill. We do need to replace our scale. Our scale is quite old, and we had some work done on it earlier this year to keep it limping along through the winter. But we definitely do need to replace it and move to digital technology. We are planning on replacing our compactor. Our current compactor has about 12,000 hours on it. And does break quite a lot. Matt and I were discussing this earlier. We are currently spending about $60,000 a year on repairs for our current compactor, which this is a picture of. It's a great machine, but just quite old and needs a lot of work to keep it up. So we're looking at going to a new machine, which would come with a warranty, and hopefully break down less and have less downtime, because of course having the compactor down leads to less efficient use of our space in the landfill. So that's why it's so important there. At some point, we do want to replace our office and crew room trailer. Not as high of a priority as some of the equipment, but of course we are still operating out of a rented crew room trailer, so that's not ideal. And then at some point in the next 5 years, the liners for 2 of our septic ponds will expire, and we will have to look at what we want to do with those. So this is just one of our options. I wanted you guys to see what one of the fancy new machines look like. Luckily for us, we have 2 really great options. Bomag and Caterpillar both make a compactor that weighs over 40 tons. They're pretty similarly priced. And Matt and I are currently in discussions to try and decide which machine is best for our needs and comes with the best financing package. Okay, so we'll get into the meat here. Price recommendations. So the key point is I've already received notice from several of the people we do business with that we pay that there will be large increases this year for inflation. So we do want to keep up with that. But we also do want to adjust some of our prices to incentivize people to do the right thing. We want to reward people who are, for example, bringing in brush separately or bringing in cardboard separately and putting it in the right place. We want to reward that with lower prices rather than having people put it into the landfill. So you'll see some price differentials that are sort of the first step towards incentivizing that. Okay. And one more thing that's important to note here, one of the biggest changes we are suggesting for this incentivization is the addition of an unsorted C&D waste category. So this is something that Pitkin County implemented about 2 years ago. And the definition of unsorted C&D waste is if you are bringing in a roll-off full of construction waste and you have your metals and your cardboard and your recyclable materials all mixed into it, and you refuse to separate them out and you throw them all in the landfill, that would be what we would consider unsorted C&D waste. So a way to incentivize people to not do that is to have a higher price on that waste than they would pay if they had sorted the metal out. So this is what's suggested here. So to dive right into the prices line by line, you can see for our main item is MSW municipal solid waste, on which we are suggesting a 5% increase. And we are suggesting that we add an out-of-county tipping fee. We do not currently receive any MSW from out of county. This is more a looking to the future suggestion. Say, for example, if Pitkin County were to decide to turn their landfill into a transfer station and want to bring their solid waste to us, this is a statement that we believe they should pay a higher rate for us taking care of their waste. So I'll just give everyone a chance to look at that. As you can see, I'm suggesting no increase on things like brush, metal appliances, screenable soil, because these are things we want to encourage people to divert from the trash. Okay, so on the next slide here, one major change you can see right here is I am suggesting that we accept metal for free. We currently accept metal for $20 per ton. I believe that that is not different enough from the price of trash to incentivize people to remove their metal from the trash. In 2017, there was a waste sort done by an engineering firm that found that 10% of all the material going into our landfill was recyclable metal. That is quite high for any landfill in Colorado. So I do believe we need to do something to incentivize people to keep metal out of the landfill. As we go down the line here, you can see a few 5% increases and then liquids. So on liquids, I am suggesting a price increase on septic and car wash waste. And this is sort of to account for the fact that we have had to pay a lot in capital improvements to manage these waste streams, and they will continue to cost money to manage. The decrease on grease is due to the fact that previously the price on grease was much higher than either septic or car wash. But I do not believe it costs us that much more to manage grease than septic or car wash. So septic waste and grease waste both can be processed in the same way and transformed into a beneficial product, compost. Car wash waste, first off, does not produce any beneficial product. We have to manage it. And second off, it does cost us more to manage because the solids from car wash waste have to be managed in the same way as contaminated soil. So that is the reason why car wash is slightly higher than the other two. Okay, I hope that makes sense too. And here is the last page of the price increases. As you can see, many of these items will not be increased because they are things we want to encourage people to divert. So grass and leaves, cardboard, food waste, we will not increase the prices on those items. Let's see, here's a little comparison if you guys want to look at how we compare to other landfills nearby. I know it's a lot of information to take in quickly. And then this is the slide that could be a 5-hour-long discussion. So since I know we don't have a lot of time, this is really just, this is here for you to maybe just read, think about later. This could be a discussion we have at another time. Obviously, you're not making any decision right now on this. But, you know, it's the question to council is looking at any of these policies to try to increase diversion something that you want to do? That's basically the question. And I will leave it there.
Liz, real quick, why, I guess we and if you don't mind taking off the presentation off of your screen, that allows us to see each other a little bit better.
Yeah.
We're not a county landfill, we're a municipal landfill, but yeah, we have a category for out of county rates. I understand if you're Garfield County, why we'd have it out of county, but why don't we have different rates for out of city or even out of 81601? Like what's the idea of out of county versus out of city?
Well, sorry, I'm not sure how to. Have I unshared my screen?
No, it's still up.
Okay. I don't see any button of how to do that.
It's okay.
But
there it is.
There it is. Okay, awesome, great. Yeah, so really that was just following along with what we were doing already. So if you look at our current price list, we have an in-county price for construction waste. We have an out-of-county price for construction waste. We have many items that have an in-county and an out-of-county price. We've never had any item that was in city or out of city. We absolutely could. You know, we could. That could be difficult to enforce, but at the same time, it's similar to enforcing in county, out of county. So I would say if that's something council wants to look at, we absolutely can. It's just, we always, from what I know of what the current price list is, we always have done in county, out of county.
And I guess my comment is more, let's save that for, I think you had some great questions that we should probably address in 2-3 months time that you showed up on the last slide. I think this is one of the things, because we do have separate rates for city amenities like the rec center and other places that are specifically in city, out of city, 81601 or our county. So, but I don't want to answer that question tonight because I think that is a longer conversation. So, but maybe let's put it on the agenda when we come back with some of those other questions I think are really good. Paula, then Charlie, then Shelley. Go ahead, Paula.
Just a little clarity on the metal thing. We're dropping the metal price to 0, but we don't want metal in the landfill. So, but we're not going to charge for it. And what is that? What is metal versus recyclable metal?
Yes. Great question, Paula. Yeah. So I should clarify that a little bit. So we don't want metal in the landfill. So when something comes to the landfill, it gets charged. What we charge it as, it actually depends on where you put it, not necessarily what it is. For example, if you brought a whole load of metal and you threw it in the landfill, we would charge you for trash. You would be charged construction waste. If you bring a whole load of metal and you throw it in the metal pile where we want you to throw it, because it's really all good, clean metal, you get charged the metal price. So there is a separate pile for metal that gets recycled. What we're talking about here with these different prices is, did the people separate it out or not? Does that make sense?
It does. And can you just, maybe it's all construction oriented, but as a resident, what would I be looking at?
Yeah, so as a resident, I mean, you would be looking at things like small metal appliances, any random scrap metal you have around your yard, metal fence posts, for example. Yeah, so you would be able to put those in the metal pile for free, whereas under the new price structure, you could put them in the metal pile for free. But if you threw them in the trash with all your other trash, you would be charged for them, the trash rate.
Totally makes sense. And just one other question, kind of relating back to what Jonathan was talking about. How much of that C&D construction waste, that 36%, is from Glenwood, and how much is it from outside of Glenwood?
You know, I actually have no idea, honestly, Paula, because right now we only track in county or out of county.
Okay.
So we don't track what's in city or not.
Well, how about in county and out of county? How much of that construction waste is out of county?
Only about 20% of it is out of county.
20% of the 36%?
Yes.
Okay.
Is out of county. Yeah.
Charlie.
So thank you. And I really don't have a question. I have more of a comment, and kind of follows up with Paula's kind of last question. Liz, I think that, as I understand it, that Pitkin County and other places have enacted building codes, and you kind of listed that in the issues you might want to talk about. So my view is I think we should have staff develop within a reasonable period of time things that discourage bringing construction and demolition to the landfill at all. I think that some real points have been made recently about we have some big projects that could bring a lot of construction debris to the landfill. I think anything we can do to change the codes to minimize that and to reduce that 36% or the 80% of the 36% by having in-town codes, we should do. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Shelley, and then Ingrid.
Thanks, Liz and Matt, both. Thanks for the presentation and all the improvements that have been going on at the landfill. I think it's great that the big project with the handling the liquid waste is hopefully going to work really well for us. So I had a question on the metal recycling. Do we actually make money on that? Do we, or who takes it?
So we currently have a contract with Green Zone out of Silt, and whether we make money or not totally depends on the price of steel. So we have a contract that fluctuates depending on the price of steel. Another part of what we do with them, however, is also the refrigerator recycling. So I will say we do currently with steel prices, we do absolutely make some money on the metal, which is a whole other reason why we don't really need to charge people for it. Right now, what we're paying on the fridge recycling program just about cancels out what we make on the metal.
Okay. Yeah. But it gets them recycled properly, so.
Absolutely, yes. It's a very good recyclable material.
Okay, and I thank you and commend you for bringing in the unsorted C&D category and charging more for that. Hopefully that will be an incentive to get people to sort and, keep some of those materials out of the landfill. So thank you for doing that. And I don't know if we can advertise how much we're promoting and advertising, but maybe some of these changes can be put out in the community in a really positive way. Like, this is more way for you to recycle. And if you want to keep your cost of your trash down, pull your recyclables out of it and, have them, especially metal and things like that, have them go to the proper place. Just a suggestion. I don't know if Brianna helps with that or how that gets done. And then on your last slide, I'd love to have that conversation about franchise hauling, and I really like the work we've been doing on providing the compost and everything. And let's see if you guys have any other ideas and proposals for making us more efficient with our trash. That's great. I'm open to that. And, with Jonathan's comment of, do we charge city? Maybe not city. I think maybe 81601 would be more appropriate, but I'd love to have that conversation. And then the last thing I would like to get an update on is that expansion process. And maybe at some point, just an item on an agenda, we can see a map of the landfill and see what's going on where, and how that process is going to work, and as far as our longevity of the landfill. I'd be interested in that conversation at some point.
Okay. Absolutely, Shelley. I'd be happy to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shelley. Councilor Wusso.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Matt. I feel as though every time I have any idea, you guys have already implemented everything, and you've been so progressive since you've taken the position. I just thank you so much. 2 quick questions for you. One is, I saw that we're renting the building for the offices. What is that on a yearly basis? What's the cost of that? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, it's $425 a month.
Okay, great. Just trying to get an idea on where that is, in the big picture with an investment of $100,000. And then the next question, what current educational how are you currently trying to educate the community? I saw under potential direction for council is education, and educating the community, I think, is obviously such a great next step. But what have we already been doing?
Well, to be honest, not much.
Okay.
We have not had much of a outreach budget ever. I don't believe. And that's, that's partly a product of our prices have always been set to just barely, sometimes not really cover costs of operations. So we don't really have extra. I absolutely think we should work on getting a line item for education and outreach and work on funding that and doing some outreach. Currently most of our education happens at the landfill, at the scale house, one-on-one talking to people. Which is great, but I do
agree. Also takes staff time then too. So
yeah, absolutely. I do agree we could do more. Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. That's something that I feel very comfortable investing in.
Great.
Thank you, Liz.
Matt.
But that kind of chat schedule a little bit, because Shelley was asking about that. We wanted to put this in front of you guys and let you think about the costs, think about the things that we're kind of suggesting in there, and probably bring it back maybe next meeting to have more of a nighttime discussion so we can kind of make a motion on some of the costs. If there, and it doesn't have to be, we could move it to the next meeting if that discussion gets too in depth. We'll want to put it a little ways out before we implement those costs so that we can do some outreach. It'll affect the haulers just a little bit with the MSW change. We'll want to have some outreach on the C&D discussion because there are builders around here that will be very interested in that kind of conversation. There's some moving companies out here that be very interested in that conversation because they have a very bad time of sorting cardboard and styrofoam, which will affect them, those kinds of things. So I think that the point Ingrid is bringing up is we do need to do a better job of outreach and education. Pickens County does an amazing job of it. They have commercials all over. They even have a mascot kind of thing. So we definitely need to do a better job of that. And I think that's going to roll through this year of us hopefully utilizing Bree a little bit, coming up with some marketing strategies, maybe using a little bit of money here and there to try to do some flyers or some education, those kinds of fun things. So that'll definitely be happening. But I think we bring rates back next meeting if Deborah's okay with that, have a short discussion about it or a long discussion, move forward with rate changes or kick it to the next one if the discussion kind of brings it to that need. The portion of it about with ComDev and helping us help people sort things, we need to sit down with Jen and Hannah for quite a while and have those discussions. Pickens County does a great job of it. It's a very extensive program and list for when you're deconstructing something, you have to meet so many points and blah, blah, blah. We need to decide how in depth we're going to get with that. Is it going to be for a shed? Is it going to be for a house? Is it going to be for an entire commercial building? How detailed are we really going to get into that from the ComDev side and try to educate people on, hey, you could save a lot of money if you just pull this apart properly, which, when the MOC was deconstructed, they pulled that thing apart very well. They pulled the metal out of it. They pulled a lot of things out of it, and they actually did a lot of recycling with that thing. So they did a good job of it. Then that's just kind of an example out there. Franchising, Shelley brought up, we are going to have that discussion tonight, at least a little bit of that discussion tonight. It's going to be spring cleanup franchising discussion later on. We have a meeting set up with Lori Batchelder. We have met with Carbondale. We kind of like how they franchise things a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I just, I know I'm kind of going over in time and I'll shut up in a sec, Jonathan, but I just want to let you know that will be a little bit later discussion that we were starting on that process. That's it.
And I think we'll have it tonight. So that's what I was going to say is it's a great conversation and I'm looking forward to having that when we're not under such time pressure. I just had a real quick question. I noticed Pickens County charge for asphalt. Do we charge different for asphalt or we just call that C&D?
We charge that the same as crushable, which is currently $40 per ton.
Okay. And so I think just wrapping this up, I think I heard from council, there's a strong desire to explore deconstruction and diversion. I'd love to just see, see some head nods. Is that what people heard of we would like to come back and see what diversion looks like?
That, and I think I'd like to make sure that we're getting some type of an idea on a budget for education as well.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
So I think those are two things that we can be taken away from this work session that are definitive, Deborah, because I'm trying to summarize things and make sure they're as definitive without an official vote. And the other thing is, I think when we come back for rates, which is all we have to talk about, and I see your hand, Steve. I'm not going to wrap it up before I call on you, but if we're able to have that conversation about city instead of county rates, and if that's appropriate in 2 weeks, that's great. If that's not appropriate and we just can't get together something that's too dramatic of a change, I would say let's have that conversation in conjunction with the diversion and education conversation that we'll have in then hopefully the next couple months. So don't tell me if you're going to or be able to. If it shows up and at the next meeting, great. Steve Davis, go ahead.
I want you guys to be very careful when you start talking about diversion and deconstruction and the C&D waste. And I heard Charlie talk about eliminating C&D altogether. And there's a difference between large scale projects and a project like you're doing, Jonathan, on your house. So you don't want to show up out there with a pickup half full of some stuff you took off your porch and have them turn you away and leave you with nowhere to go except into the creek nearby with that. You know, if as a contractor, if I go to remodel a kitchen and tear out that kitchen and I've got a trailer of an old kitchen, I don't think that really bothers us or should bother us as much as somebody tearing down the mall or taking down the old MOC. I mean, I think that's where we really need to start talking about diversion and how do you draw that line? How do you make that differentiation between large scale and small scale projects in town?
Thanks, Steve. Great point.
I just don't real quickly, Steve. If I said anything that applied, get rid of all of it. I was overstating or I didn't state it properly. I think I agree with you. I think we're looking at how do we reduce that impact on the landfill, not eliminate it. So thanks.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Let's move on to climate action plan.
Can I ask one more question real quick before we leave?
Sure.
Is council interested in city boundary discussion or the 81601 discussion? It makes a little bit of a difference. I just kind of want to know.
81601.
City boundaries.
I'm in 81601 too. That's our community.
Yeah, 81601 for me too. So do you need a vote?
No, I'm just curious.
How do you qualify that at the scale?
Totally.
Well, they have an address, a business address or a resident address.
We do it at the rec center.
Just based on the driver's license from the truck driver?
I mean, that would be something that would have to be decided by council is how do we verify that? And it could be looking at driver's licenses or it could be something else. Yeah. But we have never done that before.
That's why I wanted to ask, because sometimes it's easier for an 81601 versus the city because you can get a permit, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, I just wanted to know what the feeling was. And that was, you guys gave me the feeling. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think you got it.
Yeah. You guys come back with a recommendation, can it work?
Yep.
So.
Okay. Yeah. I'd say talk to Brian Smith at Parks and Rec because they do that. And so they kind of have that figured out, I believe. All right. Climate action plan. Who's presenting this?
Thank you all.
Thank you, Liz. Really appreciate it. So glad that you're with us.
I think climate presentation is a strong word. I think we've given you the draft that we have. It was our understanding that you guys wanted to look at it again. We were kind of offering the option of, doing a bigger dive in the comp plan if you guys wanted to do that, or we could also wait until 2023 and do a full-blown process. I just can't do a full-blown process in 2022. And I think if you look at the plan, a lot of what was proposed is done. So, which is great. We even went further with like 100% renewable energy. That was not something that was proposed in the plan. So I think you should be proud of what you've done. And then it's just timing.
Okay, I see a lot of hands up. I'm going to go with Jen first. Go ahead, Jen. Sorry, she jumped in front of you, Charlie.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I just have some questions about scope. So if you are interested in having this be even some greater, chapter in the comprehensive plan, we have some questions from the consultants about how many workshops that you would want to have. Would we have the steering committee be the same? And, would we want to have them do any level of technical assessment? Some of those kinds of questions would help us get to cost. And maybe you don't want to have that. So there's options out there, but they have some questions about, before they can give us a price, they have questions about how we would want to go forward.
Okay. Charlie, Shelley. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, I think I was at the CML meeting conference in September, and it was in one of the conferences I was at that we talked. I think Carmen or somebody was there talking about their climate action plan, and probably my ignorance, and I should have been not that ignorant, but I didn't know we had one, and so I asked Deborah if we could bring it out and put it back on at least back out there. I agree with Deborah. I think a lot of stuff was done. It also appears that there are some aspects of it that can put it on the shelf, which unfortunately a lot of the work that we do within the city is put on shelves. My comment's going to be twofold, and then I'll be done. First is, I think we should incorporate it as much as we can now, Deborah and Jen, into the comprehensive plan. I think we're looking at, the sustainable ideas of, vegetation and how that goes into zoning. Do we discourage the bluegrass and try to encourage xeriscaping and things like that? Though to that level, I would think it would be an easy add to comp plan, but it's easy for me to say that. But if you think it's much more involved than that, then I don't want to let it go. But I think that diverting it for a year is probably the better way. That's the first thing. The second thing is even though I know we're trying to eliminate boards and commissions, do we need to meld into the duties that were contemplated in this for I remember Climate Action Board. I don't remember what they called it in the report, but do we need to have a board where we have somebody looking over these things and saying, are we meeting our climate action goals? I think we need to take a lead as a community in this county to try to reduce our physical footprint, our environmental footprint, I guess is what I'm looking for. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Charlie. Shelley.
Yep. I think most of you know this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I'd love to see us dive in with both feet right away. But I think with everything that we have going on this year and with the comp plan, we are certainly due for an update on our climate action plan. It was done in 08-09 by a very active citizen ad hoc committee, but it climate action plans and the technology and the knowledge about them have come a long way in that time frame. So I'd like to see us do a comprehensive update, and it'll take into so many topics, one of the major ones being energy, but also our waste stream. This discussion we just had about the landfill, there will be pieces on that. So there are a lot of pieces of the climate action plan that wouldn't be part of the comp plan. So I would hate to try to cram the climate action update into the comp plan, because I think it will get watered down and kind of minimized. So I'd rather keep those two separate, and maybe we can let's make it a priority for 2023 that we can, by the end of this year, have an ad hoc committee together. We have so much expertise in this valley with RMI, with CORE, with CLEAR, with Holy Cross Energy, and we have residents who live in our town and people who would love to serve on either an ad hoc committee, or we make an environmental energy type board. We could discuss that when we have our board discussion, but that would be my tendency, is let's keep it separate from the comp plan. Like Charlie said, if we can include things in the comp plan like smart landscaping, we're updating. If we get our building codes updated, that's huge. You know, to have our energy code for our buildings updated so that we're building really efficient and well-built buildings. So things like that we're already doing. That's fantastic. But let's save the climate action plan update for next year when we can focus on it.
Oh, thanks, Shelley.
No. Yeah, I'm kind of following along with Charlie. I do think parts of this need to be incorporated in the comp plan. And I'm hearing Shelley, and I understand that and hearing Jen, it's much more complicated than just say, yes, add these elements. But I don't know if it's kind of like using this as kind of like a umbrella picture of, you know, these are topics that are still of interest to us, and they do make a difference on how we move forward with the comp plan. So I can't see separating them completely. So I think I'm agreeing with both Shelley and Charlie, but I really do think that there needs to be some way of overlapping that information into there. To me, it's really important that as we move forward in the future of our community, that climate change is a focal part in community planning.
Thanks, Paula. Ingrid.
When I look back and see, you know, some of the goals that came into that climate action plan, we've met so many of them, but we also have such a progressive and forward-thinking staff and community that I think we've also done other things that weren't even, you know, thought of at the time. So I don't think that there'll be any harm if we did postpone. And I'm the one who encouraged or suggested that we incorporated into the comp plan. But ultimately, when I stepped back and reflect and kind of got a little bit feedback from a few different people, I thought, you know, maybe this feels a little bit like, do we want, you know, how much do we want to take on? What's our bandwidth? And also, why don't we do a few things really well right now? And then in a year, do another few things really well, instead of just always trying to compile and overdoing it to the point that we exhaust ourselves and maybe it's not as thorough a process and or an outcome. So I'm inclined to say, you know, continue, you know, stay the course for getting it done, but put it on for the future.
I just have a question from staff. Do we think that, thank you, Ingrid. I think those are great comments, everybody. But does staff think that if we include this as part of the comp plan with our existing contract with whomever, that we will get a less quality product or less comprehensive product if we include it in our current contract than doing it as a separate standalone in a year?
Jen, you can correct me if I get this wrong, but I think you'll be happier if we wait a year and we do a full process, right? The comp plan has elements of it, so it's not like it's totally ignored, but I think you guys want the big process.
We love process.
You do.
Okay. So we're not making any decisions on this, but I feel like I've heard enough. I think Charlie made comments that said it should be part of the regular process, but I've heard from Shelley and I think Ingrid and possibly Paula that maybe we want the bigger process. And if staff is recommending that as well as a thumbs up from Councilor Hershey, then I think staff has direction.
Deborah, did you get what you needed?
I think if you guys are good with, we do the bigger process in 2023 and we just kind of let the comp plan run its natural course, which would have elements of it anyway, then I think we are good and we know what you want.
I'm certainly comfortable with that. So,
okay.
Cool. Thank you. Now we can eat dinner in 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Sounds fantastic. All right, everybody, we'll be back here literally in 15 minutes. See you then.